Yeah, I saw one of your, is this a YouTube comment? You basically replied and said you'll be offering BOI certifications for our clients soon. So why don't we start with like, what is BOI? What is the Corporate Transparency Act and everything about that?
Okay, sure. Corporate Transparency Act was a law that was passed a few years ago, actually, in the U.S., and it's just taken them a few years to kind of figure out how to implement it. Just like most government things, it takes a while to kind of sort out how to create the processes and implementation of these requirements. And so the Corporate Transparency Act went into effect this year, January 1st. And essentially, it says that any businesses that, like reporting businesses that have beneficial owners with 25% or more ownership or control in the U.S. need to report the beneficial owners to FinCEN. FinCEN is the Financial Crimes Division of the Treasury Department. And so you need to report the owners and controlling parties of all entities in the U.S. There are some exemptions to the rule that you don't have to file this beneficial ownership information report, or BOIR, that you don't have to file if you are a publicly traded company or if you're a regulated financial institution like a bank or an investment firm, a licensed investment firm. Basically, the short answer is if you are regulated by another government agency in another fashion where they already know who the controlling shareholders and directors of the company are, you don't have to do this BOIR report because you're already regulated by another government agency. That data is already available. And so what this is they're trying to aggregate this data into one database so that if people are doing shady stuff with their companies, like maybe you've got some blacklisted person who has trade restrictions in the U.S., like a terrorist or, I don't know, international drug dealer or something like that, they want to be able to block usage of that company. So it's interesting because I think that's their intent. That's what their stated intent, let's say. That's the stated intent of the regulation. Of course, if you are, international drug dealer, your name's not going to be on the company anyway, obviously. You're not going to be complying with this. You're going to use other people to run things through anyway. But that's their stated intent, is to go after financial crimes like that. So essentially, if you do have a reporting requirement, so like I said, there are exemptions to the rules with publicly traded companies or already regulated companies. If you have an entity that is dormant, that doesn't have any assets or revenue, then you don't have to file a report. And then if you are doing over $5 million in gross revenue and you're filing a tax return in the U.S. showing over $5 million in gross revenue, you also do not have to file a report. But otherwise, you have to file this beneficial ownership information report. It's a one-time filing. It has to be filed. Now, the law went into effect January 1st, and it's retroactive for any company filed before January 1st, 2024. You have to file this report by December 31st, 2024. So you've got until the end of the year to file it if your company was existing on or before January 1st. If your company was formed in 2024 between January 1st and, today, but anytime after January 1st, 2024, you have 90 days to complete the filing. And starting next year in 2025, starting January 1st, 2025, once you form the company, you have 30 days to complete the beneficial ownership information report. It's not that big of a report. They will need, as part of the report filing, you have to provide anybody who has 25% ownership or more, or controlling interest in the entity. So, for example, if you had maybe a family business and the family owns 90%, but you hired a hired gun CEO and he owns 10%, even though he doesn't own 25% or more, he would still have to be on this BOIR because he has controlling interest in the company as CEO. So it is about ownership or control. And then you have to report everybody who has more than 25% ownership or control on the BOIR for each individual company. The report, there's no cost to file the report. You can do it yourself. We are offering that service for our clients. If you registered your company with us, we'll do it for you. We do charge a small fee to do it. It's a one-time report. You only have to file once, that's it, unless there is a change of ownership or control in your company. So for example, if today you have a Florida LLC and you own 100% of it, you have to do the BOIR for you. And if next year you take on a business partner and give that partner 50% of the company, then you'll need to do an updated filing to inform FinCEN that there's a new beneficial owner of that entity. So that's basically the filing, and it is a mandatory thing. There is no way to avoid putting a human being's name on the form. You have to put in your name, your tax ID number, if you have one. If you're a non-U.S. person and don't have a personal tax ID number, then you don't file your U.S. tax ID number there. But you do have to provide some ID documentation to verify it is an actual person. So you have to submit either like a national ID card, driver's license, or a passport with it. So you can't hide. You can't hide from this. You have to actually report it. And the penalty for non-compliance is crazy. It's $500 a day. And after, I forget what the period is, but after some period of non-filing, they actually, on top of $500 a day, I believe they're also going to be adding interest and penalties on top of the $500. So the fee can get insanely expensive, or the penalty, can get insanely expensive if you don't comply. And one thing I want to point out with this beneficial ownership report, it's not a public record document. So a lot of people have asked me this, like, don't I lose all my privacy with my Wyoming or my New Mexico LLC by doing this? The answer is no. It is not a public record. Nobody can go pull up the BOIR database and see. It is only for the U.S. Treasury Department. So your company is still completely privately owned in public record, just like it's always been. The Treasury Department will have your information. However, they have your information anyway, because when you file your tax report for the company, you have to tell them who the owners are. If you're a U.S. person, you file, let's say you had an LLC with a disregarded entity, you would file on your Schedule C and list the LLC on there anyway with you as the owner. So the IRS is part of the Treasury, just like FinCEN is part of the Treasury. So they already have this information. And to be honest, the only reason they're creating this is probably because they don't have the technology or the capacity to put all this into one database, even though they already have it. They created this filing so that we create the database for them. But they do have that information already. So you're not giving them anything they don't already have. They already know who owns the company anyway. And if you were a non-U.S. person who has, let's say a Florida or a New Mexico LLC, you have to file an annual report anyway, a 5472, showing the ownership of that entity. If it's more than 25% owned by a foreign owner, you'd have to file a 5472 no matter what. And with that, you have to tell them who you are and your address and all that stuff. So, I mean, there's nothing you're not already disclosing with the entity, but it does create an additional filing requirement with the Treasury Department. So my recommendation is do it. Like they already have the information, and it doesn't cost anything, and it's a one-time filing. Just do it so you don't potentially end up with a $500 a day penalty, because I mean it's a lot of money if you end up not filing. So that's my recommendation. Get it done.
I've watched a lot of videos about that, and I learned a lot of things from you talking about it, which makes me wonder just like how many people out there are giving information like this just to be sensational, or that they just actually aren't studied on it and
almost everyone
and are giving bad advice.
Yeah, almost everyone. Sorry, I'm just grabbing another cup of coffee. Almost everyone is just giving sensational information. I saw one video, and it's not a bad headline because it is catchy, and maybe we should do something like this too. But it was like, your LLC is about to cost you $500 a day if you don't do this, or something like that. It's very sensational. Yeah, I mean, it's a very sensational topic. The headline is good. I mean, it's scary and it's legitimate. But if you watch those videos, most of them, they don't tell you that much information. Like, a lot of these other people out there, like, for example, a lot of these videos you're seeing on the beneficial ownership information report, they're being done by like info marketers and affiliate marketers. And like most of the ones I've seen are affiliate marketers, and they're being done by affiliate marketers who have an affiliate agreement with, one of our competitors, for example. And so they're doing it to attract eyeballs to redirect them to, their affiliate partners so they make a commission on the sale. They're not experts in the space. They haven't gone through and read literally every single line of that law like I have, of the Corporate Transparency Act. They haven't gone through the report themselves like I have and actually filed BOIRs for themselves and for clients. They haven't done it line by line. Whereas, I'm not an affiliate marketer. I'm talking about our own service, our own company. And, I'm trying, like, as a registered agent and as a corporate service provider, we actually have a legal requirement to inform our clients about this Corporate Transparency Act and this BOIR requirement. If we don't tell our clients about it, we actually have fines and penalties for not informing our clients. But most of these affiliate marketers and info marketers in the space, they don't actually know anything. To be honest, they probably read somebody else's blog and made a video about it. And they're like, let's see if we could get some affiliate commissions from, one of these other competitors on here. So like I have gone and read the entire law, top to bottom, and I know like all the requirements, the exemptions, everything.
That's awesome, man. Well, it's made me more comfortable about it, knowing that now I know it top to bottom, or at least what you shared of it. But I think that's the other problem with all the other content about this, is because it's sensational, everyone's taking like the fear-based approach, and it's creating a lot of chaos and confusion. And like everybody I know who's mentioned it is like kind of freaked out by it, whether it's about the privacy or about just the time or the cost to do it, or the penalties or all this stuff. And so,
yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not crazy about it.
Hopefully it makes your audience more comfortable too.
I'm not crazy about this Corporate Transparency Act. Like I do not like it. But then again, the Congress doesn't ask for my opinion when they're passing laws, right? They don't come and say, "Hey, Bobby, what do you think about this?" So I don't get to input my opinion on this. Yeah, if only. I don't get to input my opinion on this. So all I can do is react to regulation and kind of decipher it as best as I can and relay the information out to our clients. That's all I can do. And you're right, there is a lot of fear around it, like the sensationalism of it's going to cost you $500 a day. Well, yes, to be honest, yes, it probably will. But I'll be honest, I've read through the entire law, and I have no idea how the Treasury is going to enforce this. Like, there's no mechanism for them to enforce a $500 a day penalty built in. It just says there's a penalty there. Like, if you don't file the BOIR, I don't actually know how they would know who you are to file it to begin with. Like, for example, in New Mexico, completely private. You can register an LLC. You don't even have to tell the Secretary of State who owns the entity. There's no requirement whatsoever to disclose members or managers with the Secretary of State in New Mexico. So if I go register ABC LLC in New Mexico, and it's on the database, on the Secretary of State database as a current LLC in the state, who would FinCEN even reach out to fine? Who would they even reach out to? They wouldn't even know who owns it. They could send a letter to the registered agent that we need your BOI report. But I mean, that task is monumental. I mean, we're talking, I don't even know how many entities are registered right now in the U.S. I mean, we're talking in the probably hundreds of millions of LLCs and corporations currently registered in the U.S. They're like, I can't even possibly fathom the idea that FinCEN has the resources to put on that, to send a letter to every single registered corporation and LLC on New Mexico's Secretary of State database, and then cross that with the people that have already filed a BOIR. Like, they don't have the resources for that. It's not going to happen. So I'm not suggesting don't file it. What I'm saying is, like, and I will have people that will be like, nah, I'm not going to file it. Who cares? I'm not going to do it. Come at me, bro. And I'm going to have people that say that. But my thing is, they already know who you are anyway. And they already know. I mean, you file your tax return. If you're a non-U.S. person, you file your 5472. They already know who owns it. If at some point they do figure out and find those resources to reach out to you through the Secretary of State database of information, and they find that out 4 years later, they're going to hit you with a fine from January 1st, 2024 times $500 a day. Like, I just don't see, to me, I don't see the benefit of not complying. I don't like the idea of having to comply with this regulation. I think it's ridiculous, and I think it's a breach of privacy. But why fight this battle when they already know who you are anyway, and they will hit you with that fine, and it will be backdated to January 1st, 2024.
Yeah, I mean, that's why those titles being sensational, it's like, do we use a title like that? Because it's a little misleading. It's a little clickbaity. Because people are making it sound like if you don't know about it, it's already too late. That's the vibe I get when I see those videos.
Yeah. It is very clickbaity.
You need to know about this today.
I mean, I'm not against clickbaity, right? Like, this is something people do need to know. So making it clickbaity is maybe a good thing to catch people's attention, and they read it. And maybe you do need to be a little bit scared to comply. I mean, that's obviously what the Treasury Department's goal is to scare the shit out of you so you take action. But my thing is, like, even though I don't like that they're doing that, I don't like the reporting. I think the CTA is ridiculous. This BOIR is ridiculous. All of it. Morally, philosophically, all of it. I think it's ridiculous. My point is, it's not worth the battle to fight that because they already know who you are anyway. So just do it. Like, and it's not a big deal. The report itself it's a little confusing to run through the report. I think like a 5 or a 6 page filing. If you know what you're doing, like we can do them in 2 minutes. We can do one in 2 minutes.
What makes it confusing? Like if you're a single member LLC, is it confusing for that? Is it?
Yeah.
Or is it more if you have multiple owners and it's just confusing no matter what?
It's a bit confusing because the form itself is confusing because there is some. I mean, it's a government form, okay? Like, have you ever read an IRS document? Have you ever read an IRS form? I don't care how smart you are. If you haven't done it 50 times, you read it and you're like, what? Like, and that's what this form is. You read it and you read the info. Like, there's little info bubbles, like on each form. There's a little info bubble that tries to explain to you what to do. But then you read the info bubble and you're like, well, that still makes no sense. Because you don't know, like, do I tick this box? Do I tick this box or do I not tick this box? I'm not sure if I'm supposed to. Am I exempt or am I not exempt? Like, because you have to read through the whole. Like, it's a long list of exemptions. I summarized it, obviously, but there's a long list of exemptions on if you are an exempt company from a BOIR. Like I said, if you're a publicly traded company or you're a financially regulated company or you're regulated by some other government agency, you don't have to file it. But that's a long list of different exemptions on there. There's minor nuances there, and you read through it and you're like, oh God, do I do this or do I not? And then, obviously people are not going to like having to submit their IDs. That's, your passport or whatever.
And so for your company, for Business Anywhere, what's that process going to look like for me as a customer to get these BOIs done this year?
So if you're a client of ours, all you have to do is log into your dashboard. You'll see there's all the buttons for new services, like register a new company, create a new virtual mailbox. We have all they're purple buttons. And there'll be a purple button in there that'll say BOIR or Beneficial Ownership Information Report. You click that button, you pay your fee, and then you fill in a form with the information requested. And then you'll need to upload a copy of that ID document for us. And that's it. That's it on your end.
Cool, easy. So
like
just a form, ID.
That's it. Yeah. And like I said, for us, I mean, we've done it a bunch of times. So for us filing the BOIR, it's easy. It takes like a minute or two because we already know all the different questions. We already, if you're a client of ours, we already have your company documentation anyway, right? We just transpose the information over onto the form because we already have it in our database. So we already know like your company and all the information you reported to us previously about registering the company. And now we just have to confirm some details and then get a copy of your ID. That's basically it. If you were to do it, I'm not saying you can't do it. We're actually going to be sending out some emails telling you can do it with us, and we'll give you the link to the FinCEN website. You can do it yourself. So we don't have to do it for you. You can go through and do it yourself if you want. But we do have to inform you. Either we have to do it for you or we have to inform you. We're going to do both. We're going to inform you and give you the option to do it yourself, or we'll do it for you if you choose.
Yeah. I mean, for $37, I think people would be silly to mess around with it themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I think so too. For us, it takes no time. For you, you're going to sit there you will probably sit there for 2 hours trying to figure out exactly which sections you do. How do you answer? Are you exempt? Are you not exempt? Do you tick this box or this box? Like, you'll probably sit there for a couple hours. Now, if you like some of our clients, if you had 20 entities registered with us, you'd probably do one. It would take you 2 hours. Maybe the second one would take you an hour. And then 3 through 20, you'd probably do those in a couple of minutes each, right? Yeah. But then again, if you had 20 entities registered with us, paying $37 per entity is probably not that much money to not have to touch it.
Mm-hmm. So are there any other misconceptions that you've heard people perpetuating about this?
The big one is you lose all your privacy. It's now everything. You don't have private LLCs anymore. You give up all your privacy. And that is, it's not really true. There's not going to be any difference. Like if I go to Wyoming Secretary of State website or the New Mexico or the Nevada or whatever, they're not changing at all. Some of those states do not regard privacy. Like, for example, California. I can't register an LLC in California without telling them who the manager or the members are. You can't do it. In Wyoming, I can. Most states, I can register it privately, and we do. Our company always registers privacy by default. Unless you tell us otherwise, we register privacy by default. But in some states, we can't, like California, for example. So none of that changes in the public record standpoint. And that's what, from a privacy standpoint, that's what we're talking about in public record. Like, if I knew the name of your company was ABC LLC and I knew it was registered in South Carolina, for example, I could go to the South Carolina Secretary of State's website and look up the filing for ABC LLC in South Carolina. Nothing changes there. If that company was registered privately and your name is not attached to it, nothing changes. Filing this BOIR is only informing the FinCEN, which is part of the Treasury Department, that you are the beneficial owner of that entity. But that information is not public record. I mean, it will never be public record.
I think that's a misconception for the private LLCs as a whole. Is I know a lot of people who get interested in that in order to, say, like, hide from the government. Not that they're doing anything shady, but, like, you know, that's what they're thinking of the privacy layer as. Whereas what you've explained to me is that it's mostly about asset protection and public record, not so much the government, because the government already knows everything about you. And they already have that info through, like you said, through tax returns or whatever else.
So you can still use an LLC. Well, it depends on what you're doing, right? So you can still use the LLC for privacy. But I can't, like, if I'm running a business that's doing, let's say, $1 million in revenue, I have to file a tax return for the business. Well, even though maybe I use a Wyoming LLC where my name is not in public record, no managers, no members, nothing in public record, in a publicly searchable database, because the Secretary of State is a publicly searchable database. So my name is not attached to that company, but I still have to file my tax return. And let's say it's just an LLC, a single member LLC disregarded entity. So then that income shows up on Schedule C in my tax return, and my name and my company name and the income. So the Treasury Department, or the IRS, which is part of the Treasury Department, still knows that, you know, I own whatever I just said, ABC LLC, because that information is with my tax return. However, if I don't want the government to know what I'm doing, then I could create an LLC for privacy purposes. Like, let's say, this is kind of fun, higher level, you know, privacy stuff. But, like, let's say you don't want your name on any utility bills. Like, you don't want to put your gas bill, water bill, power bill. You don't want to go rent a house in your name. You don't want your name anywhere in those records, because those things can sometimes become part of your credit report. So, you know, like if you have a credit account with your power bill and you don't pay your power bill, well, your power company is going to send a negative remark back to the credit reporting agencies, and that'll reflect on your power bill that you didn't pay your XYZ utility bill, and the information about that utility bill will be in public record, and it'll be on your on your personal credit report. That's not exactly a publicly available document. But if I wanted those bills to not be in my name, so they're never associated with me whatsoever, I can go register a New Mexico LLC and sign that contract with the utility provider in the name of that ABC LLC. Okay. And now, from a public record standpoint, my name is not associated with ABC LLC whatsoever. ABC LLC just signed a gas bill contract, a water bill contract, a electric bill contract, maybe even a rental agreement. Okay. Now, in that case, that company would actually be exempt from a BOIR because it doesn't have any economic activity. It doesn't own assets. It doesn't have income or anything. It's literally just kind of like a legal, the best way I could describe it, it's a legal pseudonym, right? You've created a legal pseudonym. It's a legal person that you're using instead of your own name to sign these bills. So if you're looking for privacy, you can still do that sort of thing, and the government would never know who lived at that apartment or that house, right? Because they'll never be able to track the LLC in public record, and you don't have a BOIR, you're BOIR exempt in that scenario. So, I mean, you could still do those things from a privacy standpoint, but using an LLC for privacy in your business, that's never really been an option anyway. Like, even a German person who registers a Wyoming LLC for their software business in the US, he would still have to file at a minimum a 5472 because a 5472 is a filing that informs the IRS who owns 25% or more of a US-based entity. If he doesn't file a 5472 every year, that's a $25,000 a year fine for non-filing of that. It's a one-page form. If you don't file that one-page form, it's $25,000 a year. And you might get away with that for a while. I recently had a client, a consulting client, who was given some really bad advice, actually from a competitor of mine. And I had no idea this competitor was giving such horrible advice. But he was telling his non-US clients that they did not have to file a 5472, that it wasn't legally required. And I'm like, are you kidding me? How could you possibly give that advice to people? And so this client came to me because he originally registered his company with this client of mine. And he came to me because he got a letter from the IRS. He has $150,000 worth of fines because he hadn't filed in 6 years. Actually, it was more than that. It was because they charge 18%, 1.5% interest per month every year you don't pay. So actually, it was closer to 200,000, but it was 6 years of non-compliance plus penalties and interest. And he said, the person's name, I'm not going to repeat his name on here, but this person never told him that he needed to file this, and in fact told him he did not need to file it. And I'm like, that's really, really horrible information. Now, if you're my German client, I'm going to absolutely tell you, you got to file a 5472. Whether you file it or not, that's on you. Okay. That's not my responsibility if you choose to be non-compliant. But from my side, it's exceptionally irresponsible for me to tell you, nah, you don't have to do that. You don't need to. Because, I mean, like this client I got from a couple weeks ago, I guess it's been about a month now. He's sitting on 150,000 plus in fines because of this very, very irresponsible advice he was given.
Wow.
I was mind blown by that. But so from a privacy standpoint, yeah, I mean, this BOIR report, I mean, it's not nice. It's annoying, but unless you're completely non-compliant anyway, like, okay, fine. If you have LLCs with businesses and you're like, fuck it, I'm not going to file tax returns at all. Okay, fine. You're non-compliant anyway, and the IRS has no idea who you are. Okay, yeah, I guess. But, I mean, you're just going down a fully non-compliant road. I guess if that's the path you want to take, then don't file the BOIR, I suppose, because if you want to be fully non-compliant, then stay non-compliant consistently. But just understand the consequences are pretty hefty if you ever get caught with that. I mean, not only are you going to have that $500 a day fine for not filing the BOIR, you're going to have the penalties for not filing the tax return. If you owe tax, you're going to have penalties and interest and late payments for not paying the tax for however many years. So I mean, it could be pretty messy. We're basically just entrepreneur's toolbox. We do registered agent service and company formation in all 50 states. We handle compliance for our clients. We also have virtual mailbox service in several states across the U.S. So we provide physical addresses for clients that need physical addresses for personally or for their business in the U.S. And we do virtual mailbox service, which includes we scan and upload your mail. You can read it online. We do mail forwarding worldwide. So that's very convenient for people who are location independent or people who are really adamant about their privacy and don't want to expose their home address in public record, which is actually how we got into the virtual mailbox business in the beginning, was from a privacy perspective, is a lot of people don't want to expose their home address in public record. And then we also do remote online notary. So clearly we're, heavily geared towards location independent entrepreneurs because we do remote online notary. For example, we just notarized some documents for a real estate transaction for a guy in Mexico the other day because he just found it so much easier to do the online notary with us than to go find a local notary himself. I mean, literally, you just sit at your computer and do it. You schedule the appointment, you show up on a Google Meet chat and do it. So we do remote online notary, and I mean that's pretty much it. We help people open bank accounts remotely, that sort of thing.
That's awesome, man.
And website is businessanywhere.io.